All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host, Mr. Jonathan Simmons, and we are broadcasting to you live from the lockdown living room. As we really can't call it that anymore because we are no longer locked down. The governor has freed us, so we can move about the cabin, and we thank God for that. And we, of course, will tell everybody, even though you're doing that, please do it in a safe and judicious manner. Well, as always, the world of sports, you never know what it might bring. It's like a Forrest Gump. It's like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. And so this week, obviously, a lot have been going on, both not so much in the world of sports, but also in our society. So we wanted to kind of open it up today and talk to several people I know from various aspects of sports to get some feedback and also your conversation. You can join us in. I'll put the link up on the screen in just a little bit. You guys will be able to join us, and we hope that you will enjoy the broadcast and be able to participate. Also, the good thing is, folks, we want to go ahead and salute all those people who are watching the replay on Periscope, which is aka Twitter TV. We know some of you people watch the archive afterwards, so we thank God for you. Thank God for those of you who share it and watch us with us. I'm going to bring some of our guests on for the evening. One gentleman, I've had an opportunity to interview him and talk with him over the years. One of the great high school coaches here in the Atlanta area. Coach John Ford is in the building. Coach Ford, welcome to the show, sir.
My friend, Mr. Simmons, can you hear me? Is everything good?
I hear you now, sir. Yes, indeed. Everything is great. So how have you been, man?
Oh, man, I tell you what, I'm better than I deserve. I promise you that. How about you, my friend?
Man, listen, I'm just happy to be alive. Anytime
You and me both.
the last couple of years, I've gone on a knife a couple of times, and anytime you do that and you're able to recover and be up around taking nourishment, it's always a great blessing. So we thank God for it.
Amen. Amen, my friend.
But John, one thing I can say, we got you on a little bit of a delay with your audio, so hopefully that'll decrease as time goes on because I can hear the audio crystal clear, but it's just on a little bit of a time delay. The other person I want to bring in to the show as well, she has kind of blasted onto the scene here with us. She does a wonderful Facebook page called The Ultimate Dog Nation. Iris Fanbro Carter, are you there? I see you as
Yes,
well. Okay,
hey
there,
guys, how
there
y'all
you are.
doing?
Well, fantastic. It's good to have all you guys here in the building. Like I said, a lot's been going on in this world, and so we want to talk about that today. And I want to just kind of get some feedback from everyone that's going to be joining us tonight on. Uh, I don't want to make this a policy kind of thing because I don't know about you, but my political science days are over. And so we're not going to get into that on this particular show. But I do want to get some understanding on kind of your feel where you are is kind of how people are reacting. Maybe any suggestion that you might have, even some best practices that you've done yourself, because I know you guys are like me. You work in a diverse community, both age and color. So love to just get some feedback in that regard, and then we'll certainly answer any comments for those of you who want to comment on any of the Facebook pages or on the Periscope. We'll answer your comments as best you can. So I think, Iris, I'm going to go to you first.
Hmm.
You do the Ultimate Dog Nation.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot of guys in contact with you who are Georgia Bulldog fans, which you have a lot here, not just in Metro Atlanta, but all over the country. What's been kind of the feel on your pages, comments, and the like so far?
In regards to what's going on in the world of sports, is that
Well, kind of what's
question?
been going on, kind of the last weekend in terms of some of our societal turmoil, some of the
Okay,
protests, things like
yes.
that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's. I mean, I kind of thought that's what you were talking about, but just wanted to make sure that was it. No, we got some we did some posts in there. We got all, of course, all races posting, expressing their just frustration with what's actually going on in the country right now, asking how we can work together. Some people are asking, basically stating that they want to know more about the impact that it's had on the Black society, and so that's been good because we need that dialogue. We've needed it for a while, and so it's unfortunate that it took something the life of this man, for us to really wake up and see that we truly have a huge race problem in America.
Yeah, I think it is something that we all are definitely concerned with, and we can see it in each and every day. Again, guys, you're watching the Real Talk Sports Show here that we broadcast to you live from just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, which unfortunately became one of the epicenters in our nation from some of the protests and some of the activity. But John, you deal with young people all the time, primarily high schoolers, but guys that have gone on to college, alumni, and so forth. What's been kind of the feel or the sensibility that you've seen as far as feedback from some of your young charges?
Um, I think it comes down to not again. Like, are we really doing this again? And kind of one of the seminal moments in my life was my first year as a head coach. Was the year of the Ferguson riots, and I remember walking around the weight room and looking at kids that obviously don't look like me, and just trying to have so much empathy, but at the same time, just wondering how they feel, and wondering if that could have been one of my kids and one of my players. Just trying to listen and hear and understand, and obviously, I'll never know what it feels like. I'll never know what it. I'll never know what it. I'll never be able to personally experience what they feel. Um, but I want to understand and I want to be there for them. So when I talk to my players all the time, I always say it starts with "I love you" and it ends with "I love you." And in between is a lot of conversation. Obviously, in the game of football, there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of sweat. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of tears. But I'm not doing my job as a football coach if I can't look at all of them in the eye and tell them I love them, tell them I'm here for them. And I heard a coach today talk about in regards to his players, I don't have your back, I have your front. And you tell me what wall to run, I'll run through the wall and make a hole so big you can walk through it. And that's kind of how I feel. I feel like, over the last 6, 7, 8 years, like, are we really here again? Like what is happening? And, I hope you don't mind me kind of just taking it, but we've been cooped up for so long, and the coronavirus has affected African Americans at a higher rate than it's affected other people. And then we watch, as a police officer, you always hear people talk about, well, my life was in danger. I feared this. In this video, something was different to me. That guy was so calm. It was almost like he thought, I can take this guy's life, so I will. And I don't know how we're supposed to come back from that. I don't know how we're supposed to just think that in a week or a month, 2 months or a year, like, things are supposed to go back to being the same. I don't know. That did something different to me, and I know it did something different to society, because you can see the action. And like I said, I can't say I know what it's like to feel the same thing. If my brake light's out, if I roll through a stop sign, it's not the same for me. But I love my players of every color, obviously, and every background and ethnicity, and I just try to understand. And that's kind of what I've been doing right now is just trying to listen and pay attention and reach out and tell kids I love them, and just try to empathize and feel what they're feeling as much as I possibly can. And I hope that answers your question, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that really sums it up pretty well, John, and Iris also with you. Really, the thing, the thing for me, which I think is probably been the most difficult, is because of my age. Um, this has been like almost like an every 20-year cycle where there's an unfortunate situation of violence, and then all of a sudden we find mass protests. We find in many cases innocent people getting injured or killed as a result of the violence that is not necessarily by the protesters, but often, unfortunately, as I found as I gotten older and studied, that sometimes that you have instigators from various groups with not the best interest of heart of the populace. So that, I think, is the frustrating thing for me, to have this happen when I was just a little toddler or child, and then to have it happen again when I was a millennial with the Rodney King situation, then to have it happen again as I now in firmly in middle age. And so one of the things I did was I actually wrote a blog on this. You guys can go to my website and find it. And basically, it's just really about 24 steps that we could do involving the citizenry, involving the police, and involving our government, and even those of us like myself in ministry that can really work together to try to help this out. I'm gonna try to get this up, and I'll try to get it up on the screen just a little bit so everybody can see it. Well, speaking of everybody can see, we want to bring our other guest in as well. A young man who we call him the basketball guru, or in better yet, now he's getting a little older, we call him the basketball savant. He is one of the leading analysts here for basketball in Metro Atlanta, even around the country. And a good friend of our show, Deshaun Tate, is in the building. Deshaun, welcome to the show, sir.
Miss Carter, Mr. Ford, the Reverend, man, I'm honored, man. I'm thankful to still be here, and more importantly to be here with you as well.
Amen. Another guy we want to bring in is a young man who also has his pulse not only on sports, but also involved in what's happening in our society. Brian Jones from popculture.com, also a 24/7 beat writer for the Packers for a long time. Brian, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jonathan. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Well, like I said, it's kind of, for me, I always like to, talk as much sports as I can. But those of you who know me, the tagline for our show is actually a sports talk with perspective. So we try to make sure that we don't overlook the things that are part of the sports activity, whether it be society, whether it be finance. And right now, we're right in the middle of all of it. Brian, what has been some of your feel as far as, again, being in pop culture, straddling that line between sports and the culture? What are some of the things that you've seen as far as people on your blog, maybe people on your pages, as far as the response to what's been happening to our society?
Well, there have been a lot of players, a lot of teams that have been commenting not only on George Floyd, but just on racism. And LeBron James was one of the first people to comment on the death of George Floyd. And he compared, he went on Instagram and used a photo of Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. And basically said that this is why he was protesting. And as the days went on, that led to more teams and more players weighing in, because the whole George Floyd story just pretty much took over social media and took over the news. And I think what you're seeing is these players, specifically Black players and athletes, being tired of just the same thing going on. It's just an ongoing cycle where a young Black man dies in the hands of police, or a young Black woman dies in the hands of police. We pray, protest, and then not really forget about it, but the cycle continues with another death of a young Black person. So this is really a very interesting time, because you haven't really seen these teams, these leagues, these organizations commenting on this situation, but it's been going on for such a long time. So hopefully moving forward, we can all learn from this. We can grow from this, be better from this. Racism is going to be an issue in this country, but as long as we start the discussion, and that's what these players and teams are trying to do, then I think we can be better from this, and these incidents won't happen again.
Well, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think there's no doubt that it's been a long-standing problem, but I do think it's a situation where we can, in fact, we can all work together to make this work. One of the things that I've realized over time is that I think is missing from all these things, I think, is a game plan. I think that what happens is that people get very frustrated, get very irritated, and very angry, and then there's no end game. And so what I'm hoping to do, maybe a little bit on this show, and as we go on, to just get feedback from other people, is that what can we do to work together to actually implement some things to make change. And speaking of that, I'm going to go here and get some comments here off of social media. We're going to go here to Periscope, and we got a good friend of our show, Cammy000, saying hello to all the guests. I think we have Coach Ford back. I'm going to try to pop him back onto the screen. I think he's there as well. There he is. I think we got him. There he is. Yep. And Cammy, also from Periscope, is saying to God bless everybody and their family, and especially Mr. Floyd's family, offering condolences to them. So one of the things that I've seen, which has been great, is just really, and I think this is where the focus needs to be, is that really the diversity of people who have been moved into action or at least be able to feel free enough to at least speak on the issue. And I think that once you can start talking and having a dialogue, I think that's kind of the beginning of hopefully getting some solutions. Brian, what would you think about something like that? You think conversation is a critical thing as we move forward?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's people who are uncomfortable or just don't know about um, the situation going on, or they just want to learn more about um, why black people are angry and why black people are scared of police officers. And I think the one thing we have to do first, and this is something that has been talked about in the past, but really hasn't been done, is having that conversation, talking about um, racism, and not asking those uncomfortable questions. And I recently talked to Carrie Champion, who used to be on ESPN and now a host of the Titan games, and she uh, echoed the same thing, that we have to have these conversations. We have to continue to talk about these issues moving forward, because if we don't, if we ignore them, then we're not going to move forward. So having those conversations and having just talking about it with everyone is how we can hopefully advance as a society.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I think that's one of the things that Coach Ford had talked about as well earlier on is the ability to have this conversation with lots of different people. And I know, Coach, that's one of the things that, again, you being kind of right in the middle of it. Um, what do you think that we could do as far as to kind of maybe, in your mind, bridge this gap that we seem to have from time to time between the races? We know it's at times it's kind of recesses to the background, but is there anything that you can think of or anything that you've done in the past, maybe some things you've done to kind of say, hey, look, these are some of the things that we've done to create a more unified community? That was actually towards Coach Ford. I'll ask that again. So, Coach, anything that you guys have done or a best practice that you could
Yeah.
kind of talk about?
I may get myself in trouble here.
I don't want you to get in trouble.
But
Not really.
I think the first thing. Well, I appreciate you. I think the first thing that we've got to do is listen. The second thing we've got to do is empathize. And I think if we don't do those two things, then we're wasting our time. And the third thing I think we've got to do is help, assist, and lead in any way possible. I don't think it's just enough to be silent on the issues. I don't think it's enough to just say, well, I'm just going to let somebody who doesn't look like me or grew up different from me, I'm going to let them take the lead, and I'm just going to make a social media post. I think we have to do whatever we have to do to say, no, that's not good enough. If you think it's good enough, I'm going to vote you out. I'm going to give money to your opponent, or I'm going to stand up and be vocal. And if it costs me friends, and if it costs me job opportunities, and if it costs me, people thinking about me a certain way, I'm okay with that, because this is a black-white issue, it's a right-wrong issue. And we can't see it as a black-white issue. We have to see it as a right-wrong issue. And then we have to choose to be on the side of right. And regardless of what that costs us, we have to be okay with that. And I hope that is satisfies and is eloquent.
No, I think that hit it on the head. I mean, one of the things that I'd like to see, I guess, I'm gonna put my ministerial cap on here for a second. But when I was early in ministry, and this is going back a lot of years, but when I was in ministry and first started off, one of the things that I grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in a town that was maybe about an hour north of New York City, so we had kind of that mixture. You had a lot of people that were there that worked in the city. You had people that worked in some of the more affluent areas of Connecticut, but you also had people that came from areas that weren't too affluent. And one of the things that we did was we used to have something called the pulpit exchange, where actually our church would go to a church that was a predominantly white congregation, and we would exchange. Our pastor would go with a bunch of us, and he would be the guest speaker for that service, and then their pastor would come over and do that. We had a lot more intermingling when I was younger in the ministry. It seemed to me that we had these types of interactions where churches would get together for joint events than we do today. And the reason why I point that out from the ministry side, it's interesting that Dr. King says something many years ago, which I think to some degree is still in effect today. He said that the most segregated place in America is 11 o'clock a.m. on Sunday, because we really, for people that are supposed to be fellow believers, we often don't worship together at all, which is kind of odd. So I don't know what your guys' sensibility. Now we're going to go to social media here for a quick second here. And we're going to get some more comments from our good buddy Cammy000, who's watching us right now on Periscope. And again, for those of you watching on the archive on Periscope, we appreciate you as well. Cammy said, unfortunately, not everyone's willing to work together in unity, and prejudices will come. But we just have to, do whatever we can to try to, kind of push past this. Let's shift a minute to sports, because this is a sports show. I want to go to Brian first. Brian, sports is involving money. And right now, one of the things I know you've covered over the years, you covered the Braves, so you're kind of my go-to guy on baseball.
Yeah.
Are we gonna see a baseball season, number one, and kind of what's the whole problem here, where why these millionaires and billionaires can't find a way to play about 100 games this season and play some baseball?
At first I thought there wasn't going to be a season because the salary cuts that the owners want to give to the players, but both sides are trying to do everything they can. Recently, I read a story about the players offering 114 game season that would start on June 30th and basically end on Halloween, and they would get the majority of their salary. And the owners have countered that now with just a 50 game season. And they've been talking for over a month, maybe, and they still haven't made any advances. They're pretty much where they were a month ago. So the time is ticking. So if they want, and the thing is, they wanted to start the season in late June and early July, probably the latest, like on the 4th of July. And so time is ticking. So if they want to get something done, they have to get something done in a few days, because they're going to have, like, I guess, a mini spring training. And it just comes down to money. And, it comes down to money this year and next year as well. So there's so many layers to it. And these players, there's some players that aren't willing to play for a 75-80% pay cut. I remember writing a story on the Tampa Bay Rays pitcher, Blake Snell, who said he's not going to play if he doesn't get his full salary. He flat out said that on his Twitch channel, and because he feels like he's risking his life because of everything going on with COVID-19. And there could be some players that don't play because of what's going on with COVID-19, salary or not. So I think there will be a season, but they have to get something done in the next few days. If not, then it's likely they'll have to wait until March or April for the 2021 season to start.
Yeah, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to social media, and I'm going to pop back on to Deshaun to talk about basketball. Let's pop into social media and see what we have cooking here. Let's go here to Facebook Live. And this gentleman here is someone that's known me for a long time. Oh, man, she had to put it out there. How well we know our brother growing up in Connecticut in the late 50s and early 60s. Okay, first of all, brother, I wasn't born until 1959. Now, if you put all our business out in the street, and we were little kids when the first riots happened. But that is true. It was a very interesting time growing up there, but I loved it. I mean, it was just we were first group of kids to go to integrated high schools, and it was just a different time then. And we also have on Facebook Live. Let's pop in here. We think we had Chris. There it is. Chris Drees, give a big shout out to Brian. Chris,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's good to hear from Chris.
You can see Chris is ready because he got the Braves jersey and everything going on. So he's ready to rock and roll. And also from Facebook Live, I don't know if I should forgive him or not. Dennis Bros, my good buddy, is indicating that he's sorry that he outed my age here on social media. That's all. I still love you, brother. It's all good. All right, everybody, listen again. You're watching the Real Talk Sports Shows. We broadcast to you here on multiple channels. We are live streaming on Facebook Live. We're also on YouTube Live, and we're also on Periscope, which is AKA Twitter TV. And we thank God for all our guests who have joined us. Coach Ford is having a little problem with his Wi-Fi, so we had to pop out. He's hopefully going to pop back on a little bit later. All right, Deshaun, NBA, there's been some banting about a kind of, I guess, a March Madness style 20 to 22 games, 20 to 22 teams, all kind of sequestered together, either in Florida or Las Vegas. Do you think that's going to happen, number one? And number two, do you think that they should expand it to even more teams? What's your feeling on it?
Well, we can call it March Madness style, but you and I both know that there's really only one true March Madness. outside of outside of that, I think that we will see a season in which it's been pretty evident that a lot of the teams that are outside of having an opportunity to play within the 16 teams as they're expanding it to 20 to 22 teams potentially in Orlando are not really happy with that idea. They feel like all 30 teams should have an opportunity to play in it. I know that the head coach for the Atlanta Hawks came on to speak with the media, I think yesterday, and talked a little bit about how he's not in favor of that and that he feels like all 30 teams should be included. But they had their opportunities. Who's left out is left out because you had your chances. And specifically for the Atlanta Hawks, they're one of the franchises that doesn't have an opportunity to play into that. I feel like as long as it's a go from a health standpoint, where I feel like it'll be really redundant and pointless. I think I heard Adam Silver say this, where if we're going to be put in a situation where we're going to resume the season and one person tests positive, which I think is very likely and will happen, and then everybody all of a sudden gets terrified and doesn't want to play, then we should just scrap the whole season. And I totally agree with that. Outside of that, it appears like this is getting ready to be a thing. The whole 16 teams, I've said it multiple times on your shows when I was on as a guest. I just don't want there to be any asterisk put out there for whoever wins this thing. I don't want to hear everybody had the same opportunities to play the same amount of games. We're in our uncharted territories where none of us expected this, and we just have to roll. Life is going to throw some crazy things at us sometimes, but we all have to just pick up. Life is not fair. We're seeing that going on in the world today outside of sports. So certainly within the sports realm, you just kind of have to take it and make the best of the situation. My question is, who's going to be the player or players or franchise that this kind of lights a spark or a fire under their belly and motivates them and inspires them even more to come out hungrier than they did before. And that's something that I would like to see. But the last thing I want is anyone putting an asterisk on a season, because we didn't do that for the Spurs when they won it in 99 during a lockout. They didn't do that in 2011 when the Mavericks beat the Miami Heat, and I think LeBron's first year when only 66 games was played. And I don't think that they should do that either this year. I'm just more so not really concerned about whether the season is going to resume, but more so the fact that I just hope that guys are going out there and giving it their all, because we're already hearing certain players, little rumblings, about, or Damian Lillard, and I know a few others that have said, if we don't have a chance at playing in, even if all 30 teams get let in, if we don't have a chance at realistic opportunity at the playoffs, then I'm not willing to participate, and I respectfully disagree with that.
Well, it certainly is on point here. And what I'm going to do here, guys, I'm going to let you guys take the floor for a second. As you can see, I'm not on the screen. I'm not sure what's going on with my microphone. We want to give a big shout out to Cammy 000, who is always she gets a big kick out of you, Deshaun. So there you go. One of your key fans right there coming to you on Periscope. And also, we want to go back to Facebook Live. Dennis Burrows asking a question: at what point do you guys think COVID-19 will not be a factor? Probably still going to be here this year, next year, and any athlete could catch it any time. So I'm going to let you guys get a feedback on that while I try to do some camera investigation here. Go ahead, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay, well, I love to talk, so I'm gonna be the person to step up. I'm the blabbermouth. I'm not good at many things, but talking is one of them. I'll say enough to say I don't think that we're going to get to a point where COVID-19 is not a factor, but we have to approach it as if it's not a factor. Life is not about making excuses. Again, life is going to throw crazy things at us, and that's going to be the same way that it has been for all of these years, all 35 going on 36 of mine, including everybody else that's on the screen, including everybody else that's listening to the podcast. So it's just about how do you move forward. And if not nothing else, I think it's just it's a testimony, and it's a step towards showing how we are growing and evolving as not just us as people, but them as athletes. And in my humble opinion, I think that this is something that have kind of leveled out the playing field, if you will, for everybody. Because for people who is or was on celebrity status, this COVID-19 situation does not see how much money you make in your bank account. It doesn't, separate you from the regular, everyday 9-to-5, hardworking, blue collar citizen. And so I think it's going to bring a lot of those celebrities down to that level, which I ultimately think is good, because anytime you get the opportunity to go back to your roots and realize that it's just like a driver's license and being able to drive is not necessarily a right, but it is a privilege. And so to be blessed with the skills and the abilities that they have as athletes, whether that be on the court, on the diamond, on the ice, or anywhere else, I think is something that can make people realize that in addition to that people being taken out of this world every single day is realizing that they're not exempt from that. And I just hope that it inspires people, it motivates people, and make people even more determined when it comes to that competitive nature that I hope each one of them embrace, to make it a much better game, an appreciative game for them as the players and for us as the viewers.
Yeah, I think Dr. Anthony Fauci pretty much said when it comes to a vaccine, it could come at December at the earliest, but realistically, it's going to come maybe in March or April. So COVID-19, this form of coronavirus is going to be here. It's not going to completely go away. I think if anything, it's going to be kind of a seasonal thing. And so I think this teaches all of us, not just athletes, just to be more cautious when it comes to being social, when it comes to personal hygiene, all that stuff. And that's why, and I think when it comes to the NFL, they're going about this like they're going to start on time. They're going to have full stadiums. We're not sure how that's going to go, but they're taking all the precautions. They recently came out and said that, they're not going to have joint practices. Every team is going to stay at their facilities for training camp. So I think moving forward, I think this teaches us, how to necessarily just how to be more cautious when it comes to personal hygiene, all those things. Again, coronavirus is not going to go away, but I think for athletes, they're going to be more cautious. They're going to do everything they can to protect themselves, help build their immune system. Tom Brady has been all about building your immune system, making sure you get vitamin D as much as you can. So I think in some ways it could be this whole pandemic could be a good thing when it comes to one's personal health, because I think moving forward, these people, I think everyone, it gives them an opportunity to take care of themselves better.
Who just joined us?
That was Brother D. Orlando Ledbetter, welcoming him into the show. Appreciate you for joining us. We were actually just kind of going around the round table and just talking a little bit about how COVID-19 and different things of that nature. Not trying to take over your show by any means, Reverend Simmons, but
go right ahead.
I'm just
Good job, Deshaun.
just about how it's affecting the athletes, how it'll affect the game moving forward in the event that, as it seems right now, that there's going to be a resumption.
So, D-Led, what's the feedback you've been getting from the
Could I chime
Falcons?
in?
Oh, go ahead. Let Iris go first, and then
Can
D-Led
you
after
guys
that.
hear
Go
me?
ahead, Iris. Yep. We're gonna let ladies go first. Iris, go ahead.
Hello?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Okay, you can hear me. Great.
Yeah.
My
Yep.
thing is, here's what I think. Of course, coronavirus is when it first hit the scene. It pretty much scared me. I'm sure it scared a lot of people. But as time goes on, we become complacent. It has become kind of a backdrop to everything else that's going on. Also, I wanted to mention, the reason why I mentioned that is because I also think that we have to get back to some type of normalcy. And with us starting to accept that the coronavirus is here, that it's going to be here for a while, um, the vaccine, as actually, getting a vaccine in March of next year is pretty expeditious because it usually takes about 18 months to go through all the different trials, qualitative and quantitative research to deem that it's safe for the public. At any rate, I think that getting back to some type of normalcy includes having our sports on the weekends, and of course in baseball during the weekday, having something for us to look forward to enjoy our lives. We've been so you know being in the homes now, being in our houses, being having to shelter in place. We've become what you call it, we've developed cabin fever, and it can be damaging to you emotionally as well, and mentally. So we need to get back to some kind of normalcy, and sports is one of the ways to do that.
All right, D-Led, I'm gonna have you chime in because the NFL as pretty much is
Jonathan,
all.
are you back?
I think I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
I don't hear
Yeah,
him.
we hear you.
You can hear me? All right, Iris, you're the only one can't hear me?
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. So, D-Led, I want to get your feedback because obviously you're the main guy with the Falcons. Camp has opened up. Not camp, but I guess the facility's opened up. What's some of the feedback you've gotten from the
I can't
Falcons
hear
as
Jonathan.
far as the timetable for them and what their sensibilities are about starting the season on time?
Please, we'll hear something this week about whether the coaches are back in the building. The players are not coming back anytime soon. They're working with the NFL and the NFLPA to come up with the parameters for which they would return. They have the luxury of sitting back and seeing how June and July unfold. If we have a resurgence in the coronavirus pandemic, the so-called second wave, they'll know by the end of July whether that's coming or not. And if they do, then they have to figure out how they're going to do testing for the players, the protocols with regards to temperature, and then what happens when the players go home and get around other people. That's the other situation that is come up. So they play in stadiums with fans or without. Do they push back the season of 4 weeks or don't start it until the end of September instead of the beginning? They have some flexibility in place, but they're going to play the 16 game schedules, just when they're going to start it and how they're going to get going at this point.
Well, I think that's a pretty good idea of what's happening. Of course, you know, guys, I put together on this program a couple of scenarios where they could actually have fans in the stadium. We'll go right back out to social media again, and it does appear that Miss Cammie from Periscope enjoyed me being off the air. She said that Deshaun is a natural. So there you go. So evidently, I'm going to be replaced. Okay, so next week I'll just not even come on.
Translation: Deshaun talks too much. I've heard that once or twice.
No, we're doing good, brother. It's all good. It's all good. Again, everybody, you're watching the Real Talk Sports Shows. We broadcast to you from outside, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, 20 miles away from downtown Atlanta, which looks different now, unfortunately. Like so many cities around the country, Atlanta was struck with some looting and property destruction after a very peaceful protest, I might add. I want to also just mention that before we get off the air, that the protests during the daytime were in fact just that. They were peaceful protests. There was very little interaction as far as any violence. It wasn't until the lights went down and in many cases infiltrators and instigators came in and that's where looting and other things started. So that's what happened here in Atlanta. And so one of my favorite spots, the College Football Hall of Fame, took a lot of damage as well. D-Led,
Yeah.
speaking of the actual on-the-field activity, what have the guys been doing to try to keep themselves ready so that when they get into camp, they're not kind of starting from zero? What have you been hearing in terms of private workouts and so forth for some of the players?
Yeah, a lot of different individual workouts at different places. Some of the guys locally, the receivers and the defensive backs, have gotten together. There was one report that Matt Ryan had some people out in California that we haven't been able to substantiate. But yeah, I talked to Alex Mack last week. He's working out on his own in California, and he said, motivation's a problem. The fact that you are in a team setting when everybody has to go through their own workout together, and you got the coaches blowing the whistle at you to run, and that is a little different. Just motivating yourself to go handle your business. He said, and this is a veteran, so he's 34 years old, been at it for a while. So if he's having trouble, that some of the young players are. So I think once they do come back, they're gonna have to start real slow to make sure everybody's in shape. Try to guard against the soft tissue injuries that come, and try to move forward that way. A lot of people are doing a lot of different stuff in a lot of different places, but they're meeting online to talk about it. So, one of the things that I found that was a little bit illuminating is that the Falcons are not one of the teams filming the workout. Those teams that are doing that also have to pay the players, and then they assume the liability. By not filming the players are working out on their own. So if I'm working out on my own, I don't know how hard I'm going to go if the team is not covering me medically. Because if I get hurt, it's on me, not the team. So, those are some of the issues that have come up during this pandemic with regard to training in separate places and the liabilities that go with that.
Gotcha. Well, let's go to social media here. We got buzzing now. Some questions here. We'll go to a guy that is always shout him out because he's the one I think got a couple of us started here on the air. Mr. Football, Vincent Turner, does a great show on Facebook Live himself called 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. He got the question first for D and then also for Iris. Question is for D. Orlando Ledbetter, who will be the backup for Todd Gurley as far as the number of reps? And then once again, a little shade thrown at Miss Carter saying "Roll Tide" by Mr. Turner. But D. Ledbetter, we're going to go to you first. So who do you think is going to be getting the second most number of carries behind Todd Gurley coming up in 2020?
That's going to be Edo Smith. They really like him. Dirk Cutter ran him inside zone last year before he got hurt. So I'm thinking Edo Smith is their best back on the roster behind Todd Gurley. Then you have Quadri Ellison for short yardage and Brian Hill to help out on special teams.
Well, you mentioned Brian Hill there. Brian, he's a very interesting character because when I watched him run, he oftentimes seems to me a guy that just is just chomping at the bit for that. There was an old saying that Dale Sayers used to have back in the 60s. So all I need is 6 inches of daylight. That's how Brian Hill looks to me most of the time when he's running. He just looks like a cold spring ready to go. Let's go back to social media again. Vincent Turner, I think, let's pop in here and take a peek. He's got a question for Deshaun Taylor. Basketball question. What does he like about Jalen Green?
Well, I mean, Jalen Green is a phenomenal athlete. I don't think that, anybody can blame him for taking the money instead of going the collegiate route, taking the money and getting, $500,000 for a single season from the NBA G League, which happens to be what I think is not always the best situation, just because of the simple fact that, it's a very overpopulated and oversaturated league, and sometimes weaknesses can be exposed a lot easier than they do on the collegiate level. But as far as him being a player, he definitely has to work on that jump shot. I think we can say that about every 17 to 18-year-old kid that's going into college. But he's obviously a really good player. Is he special? I'm not sure I'd be willing to go that far. I think that he still has to grow within himself, grow within his game, and so forth. But his athletic ability is second to none, and just the scorer that he is all around is, phenomenal as well. Defensively, he does a pretty good in that area too. So I think it'll be interesting to find out when basketball finally does resume.
Well, I think you're right on that. Let's also go to social media here. Let me pop back onto the screen here, and here we go. Let's go here and take a look on Facebook Live. Our good friend is also down at Georgia actually stayed checking in from the DC area. Another spot that was hard hit, so she's giving some kudos there, and they're trying to get back to normal there as well. Even though the president decided it was a good idea to stand in front of the church with the Bible upside down. I thought that kind of interesting myself. We're gonna take a quick little hiatus here for a second. Here we got a couple little gremlins that are in the machine for audio wise. You're watching Real Talk Sports Show here on Atlanta's Incredible Radio, WIGO. You're also watching us on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope. And we'll be back in just a momento. Hang tight. Well, hopefully some of the bugs have went away from the machine, I hope and pray. And we're going to continue on with the broadcast here. Again, you listen to the Real Talk Sports Show as we broadcast to you here on multiple platforms here on Facebook Live, YouTube. Many thanks to those of you watching the replay on Periscope, aka Twitter TV. We thank God for all those of you. We'll go around the board here so you guys know who everybody is. Deshaun Tate, basketball guru and savant. You can check him out on Tate Takes Sports. I think that's right. Brian Jones, also an aficionado of sports, a guy that's been writing for the Packers on 24/7 Sports, now is shifted into pop culture. You can find him on popculture.com. And down at the bottom of the screen, the lady that makes us all look good, the most beautiful one there on the screen, Iris Carter. She is the founder of the Ultimate Dog Nation. And back into the screen, the guy who is the embedded beat writer, award-winning sports writer for the AJC. D. Orlando Ledbetter covers our Atlanta Falcons. And D-Led, you were talking about an interesting thing here about the players maybe being concerned about going full throttle because the injury not being covered. So what's the sensibility? When that happens, the league just says, hey, you're out there on your own, so, we're not covering you. How does that kind of work? All right, somehow we lost the audio from D-Led. Let's see if I can check that audio here. Let's hit the button. All right, I think we got you now, D-Led. Yep.
Yeah, there are different comp laws in different states. So there's issues with California is a little bit more liberal than Mississippi. So if the injury occurs while at work, they would fall under the workers' comp statute. Normally, if they're at work, if they're just working out on their own, which is what the Falcons are doing, then the liability would fall to the personal player. So you're gonna try to work as safely as possible, but working out sometimes things happen. So the physicals when they come back in will be very important. If they're gonna be trying to hide it, at least make it again, and then get hurt on the first day, so the season covers. There are all kinds of different issues like off-season injuries.
You got you a little low on the volume there, D-Led. But we got another question here. This one is to Brian Jones. Question is, what is JT Daniels? What about JT Daniels going to Georgia? And Iris, you might want to comment on that as well. JT Daniels now heading to Georgia. First, you, Brian.
Yeah, this was a big move for Georgia. JT knew this year. That's like the day Jake Fromm was leaving, but. And as a sophomore quarterback, he was the Gatorade Football Player of the Year in 2017. And faced an interesting position for because that quarterback position. Jamie Newman the starter. The expectations are going to be high, but I think once he leaves, that's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be JT to job to group. He's going to come into relatively new offensive system and Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator. And Monken, if you followed him in the NFL, he is a guy that likes to air it out, be aggressive downfield, and that's something that fans want to see moving forward. Jake Fromm was good for Georgia, but I think when it comes to the offense, fans want this offense to be more aggressive, and you'll see that with Newman, and you'll see that with JT Daniels. Not this year, but I think next year, and then the year after that.
Okay.
Well, Iris, I know it's right up your alley there, Dog Nation.
Yes,
So what
I
do you
was
think about
hoping to
JT
get
coming to
this.
town?
Okay, I was hoping to get this question. I first, when I first saw it come across a little message I got, I didn't even see anything out there in the news that he had actually committed to Georgia. I was kind of confused about that, seeing that I do know the history. I know about, how highly he was rated coming out of high school. Actually graduating a year early, so he was in the mix with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Good set of quarterbacks that went to college that year. At any rate, I know he went to Southern Cal and ended up tearing his ACL. I did actually see. I was actually watching that game when it happened. I felt sorry. Just awful for him. But I was kind of confused about it because to me, and I did some research on this, his stats in college, even though he got hurt last year, the year before, he played a full season. His stats in college did not live up to expectations. And I know, of course, that was his freshman season. I've heard a lot of people say that. I heard that, he should have still been playing in high school, things of that nature. So to me, I'm still on the fence when it comes to JT Daniels. I don't even think that he's actually classified as a five-star quarterback anymore, according to 247 Sports. You can check it out. So some actually speculated that they were bringing him to Georgia to compete against Newman. And even if that is the case, I don't think that he will beat out Newman. I think, truly, though, I think they brought him in for the 21 competition, which to me, that was still kind of perplexing because you still have Brock Branniger coming in 21 season. He's a phenom. You also have Carson Beck, highly rated 4-star, and Dwan Mathers just got cleared to play as well. So it'll be interesting. That quarterback room is pretty crowded right now. If I was a betting person, I'd try not to. But if he were to be cleared this year to play, I still think Newman will get the job.
Yeah, so it seems like Kirby is going the route that we've seen with Alabama and certainly many great schools over the years, basically stacking them up. I mean, letting the competition in the
Yep.
room give you the very best player on the field. And it's worked for Alabama. It's worked for other schools in the past. Going back when I was a kid, that's what I did it at Ohio State, Notre Dame, other places. It's just like there was no fall off from that, basically three guys down the depth chart. So no question that it looks like Kirby might have that same kind of flexibility going on there. Speaking of depth chart, D-Led, looking now at the Falcons defensively, what are you seeing here? Of course, they brought some new pieces in during the offseason. They brought in the defensive lineman. Actually, I guess he's kind of a hybrid, really, lineman, linebacker coming in from the Rams. And what are we looking at on their defensive line as far as the pecking order? Who are the guys we want to look at here that are really going to impact that defense?
Well, yeah, Dante Fowler, the gentleman they signed in free agency, he'll basically take over for Vic Beasley. They're counting on Tack McKinley coming back from shoulder surgery on that other end, but they got some insurance by signing Charles Harris. He's the former first-round pick with the Miami Dolphins. They also signed him, so that's a backup there. Didn't re-sign Adrian Claiborne. Would have liked to seen him come back. But, internally on the inside, got Grady Jarrett, of course. Tyler Davidson was re-signed. Alan Bailey was also brought back. Sturdy defenders. Davidson really did a really good job last year playing the run. Both of those guys did a good job against the run. And then they drafted Marlon Davidson. They need him to come along and play right away. And John Cominsky, the fourth-round pick from last year, big kid who looked good when he got out there last year. playing some in and run situations and inside a tackle and pass situations. So those are the top guys coming in to help fortify that defensive line. They just got some more money back on their post June 1 cut of Desmond True fund. So they might can add a pass rusher, that's out there after they take care of the rookies. Maybe Clay Matthews Jr. He had 8 sacks. He's not what he used to be, but 8 sacks would have tied for the team lead with the Falcons. So you can see that coming as far as that defensive line front for you, Reverend Simmons.
So based on what you're telling me, I think that certainly Kaminsky was a guy that was very, really kind of was a surprise coming out of a very, very small school, but has played very, very well. And he kind of gives you that Claiborne feel, can rush the passer, still a good run defender, and a guy like you mentioned can float between tackle and end. So I'm very interested to see that. Clay Matthews, that would be ironic because the Falcons actually passed, I believe, on a chance to draft him when he first came out of college. So how cool would it be to bring him there? Of course, he's already got family with Jake. So that might be a good fit for the Falcons, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. That was 2008. They took Perez Jerry, number 24th, and then Clay Matthews went second, 25th overall that year, and they've been regretting that pick ever since.
Yeah, because that would have certainly changed the Falcons' fortune. You kind of wonder what that team would have been had they would have been able to have a Clay Matthews Jr. be able to kind of be the anchor coming off that edge. So certainly the fortune would be, like I said, we'd be interested to see him kind of make a run here and kind of close his career here in Atlanta. Well, Gillette, one thing that you do every week is bring people the latest and greatest about what's going on with the Falcons. How can people find out more about you? Follow that great Cover 9 on 9 blog, and of course the Bowtie Chronicles.
Oh, yeah, I did it earlier today. The Cover 9 and 9 blog will be out at 9 in the morning on every Wednesday. 9 things on the Falcons. We talk, give you a little preview. We talk about Alex Mack and, wanting everybody to be in the stands for the game. So that's a dream. Hopefully it'll come true for him. But Alex Mack, and then the Bowtie Chronicles podcast, spent some time over the weekend with Lee Steinberg, the real-life Jerry Maguire. I was on his panel for his sports and career seminar, and I just wanted to share some thoughts with some of the folks out there that might want to be a sports agent one day. Maybe they want to be the next Jerry Maguire. So I was able to share some of that information in the Bowtie Chronicles podcast. We'll be tweeting them out at 8, 9 a.m. in the morning on Twitter. You can go to HAC.com or certainly go to our Facebook page, Atlanta Falcons News Now, to follow our coverage.
Lee Steinberg, man, I haven't seen him in a long time. Last time I actually had any interaction with Lee Steinberg is going all the way back when I participated in the Work Done Celebrity Bowling Tournament. And Lee Steinberg was there at the time, decided not to bowl, even though he claimed he had a 180 average. We never saw him actually on the lanes itself, so I'm not sure. Let's go up to the top here. Brian Jones. Brian, how can people find out more about you, website, social media, and the like?
Yeah, I'm the trending sports writer for popculture.com. All my work at popculture.com/sports. And for any entertainment and trending news, you can go to popculture.com. Great work from our team there. You can find me on Twitter. It's at Brian Jones _PC, and I have my own podcast called College Football Season. You can find that on Spotify, Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn Radio.
Brian Jones, a bad man and a well-rounded guy as well. Iris, of course, we say the beauty for last. Tell us how they can find out more about you, the Facebook page, and the like.
Okay, yeah, as Jonathan, you mentioned earlier, I run the Ultimate Dog Nation on Facebook. You can, if you want to follow me personally, you can find me at Iris Famber, everything Frank, AMBRO Carter. I'm very active on social media. I got a lot of issues that I like to post about. But I'm telling you what, in the Ultimate Dog Nation, we have a good time. We have a good time in there, and we try to do stuff a little differently in there too. So. Yeah, it's a lively group.
And Iris is being very shy and humble right now. Not only is that a great spot for Georgia Bulldog fans, but several former Bulldog players actually are very engaged in that site. Quincy Carter, some of the other guys are all in there. So if you want to get a chance to chit chat with some of your favorite dogs, you can do so. Speaking of that, we want to go around the Facebook again here. We got some comments here. I like the name of this individual, Bentley Continental. He says, hi, friends. I like that name right there, Bentley Continental. Hey, that means you're riding the style. Well, guys, listen, we appreciate you as always coming on to join us, taking some time out with us today. I think this has been a lively broadcast. I think there was some great insight into, kind of the different things that are going on in society. D-Let, of course, we appreciate you for telling us what's going on with the camp, because a lot of people don't know what's going on with the NFL at all as far as our Falcons are concerned. It was also good to hear some updates about some of the guys we can look for once camp actually opens, and we can cover it as well. Well, guys, I'm going to put my ministerial hat on, as I always do at the end of the broadcast, and I think it's even more fitting today that we kind of take time out from time to time to look at our spiritual house. These things that we see go on are not happening in a vacuum. They are because this nation as a whole, and many people in particular, are suffering from a spiritual vacuum. They are not enlightened to the goodness of God. And so we want to continue to pray for all of our leaders that they would, as the old people say, straighten up and fly right, and that the Lord will adjust their mindset to do the things that are best for the populace. And then for everybody watching, I always ask you, do you know the Lord Jesus Christ for yourself as your personal Savior? If you don't, I please remind you, please, man, please, sir, get to know him today. Why? Because absolutely nobody loves like Jesus, not your mom, not your auntie, not grandmama and them. Nobody loves him like you, because he made you. He died for you, and that is your entry into that wonderful place called heaven, and to help you avoid the bad place. Nobody wants to go there. All right, guys, we appreciate everybody watching on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Periscope. Until next time we all get together, we say God bless you and have a good evening. Good night, everyone.
Hi, guys.